We go. All right, everybody. Welcome to episode number 2 of the Proptech Genius podcast. See, you get to be called a genius. You get to do that a lot in your life.
Let's let the listeners decide whether it's genius or not.
Exactly. Exactly. But you're going to be called a genius today. I'll call you a genius. So very cool. Well, I'm so happy to have Peter on my podcast, and I'm going to let him kind of tell his bio, but we're going to talk Be Home 24/7, which is vacation rental and single family rental space. And I'll talk all prop tech in that whole era and just chat,
Absolutely.
founder to founder. Let's do that,
Well,
man.
thanks, Amy. Good
Yeah,
morning or
yeah,
good day. Who knows when people are listening to this?
exactly.
Yeah, so my name is Peter Gudmundsson. I'm CEO of a company called Be Home 24/7. We provide a unified operations platform, which is a
Mhm.
term we use and nobody else uses, unhelpfully. But it's software that controls the operations of what goes on inside the four walls of a unit, whether it be a house or a condo or apartment or whatever. And as you mentioned, we serve two markets, the vacation or short-term rental space and the residential space, which is single family and multifamily. And the whole idea is real estate property managers, whether they be third-party property managers or owner operators, use us to do four things: save money, make money, reduce risk, and deliver a better resident or guest experience. And they do that by three things. It's controlling smart devices, so locks, thermostats, noise detectors, leak detectors, really almost any wireless device can connect to. We have a little controller device, a hub, picture sort of a small Wi-Fi router type looking thing, and it connects all those devices to the internet, to the cloud, where our software resides, and it does controls the operating workflows. So in the vacation world, it's things like checking guests in and out, maintenance management, housekeeping, linen inventory, energy management, all that type of thing. And then guest communications to keep the guest informed, because the whole goal in vacation rental is to get the guest back to vacation. They don't want to be interacting with software. They want to be hanging on the beach or skiing or doing whatever they're doing on vacation. And the second part is the residential world, where it is similar things, but where appropriate. So self-guided tours using geolocation and other technologies to deliver what's called an ultra-secure virtual tour, not a virtual tour, sorry, a self-guided tour. It's not just a software trip online. It's actually going to the actual property and touring it without the interference of a human. And then the same maintenance and energy management and all that sort of thing. And then finally, resident communication. So that was a long elevator pitch right there.
Yeah.
That was a Empire State Building elevator long pitch, but it gives you a sense of what we do.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. So, the big push in prop tech has gone from it used to be we had management tools, and now we're looking at more automation. Kind of, it's kind of and then with data and AI, that'll be kind of like the next gen. But are you incorporating any sort of AI in your stuff, or you've
Yeah,
built?
we've done it. I mean, funny, there's AI, the reality, and there's AI, the buzzword. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah, yeah. I know. Yeah.
if we time traveled back 3 years, you would have asked that exact same question, but taken out AI and said blockchain. And we would have nodded along and got excited about that. Yes,
Yeah.
there is machine learning involved in things,
Yeah.
but again, we've been doing that for a long time. So
Right.
AI, the buzz, we don't get too wrapped up in. It is funny, and I was a .com CEO. My first CEO gig was a company called Jobs.com back in the year 2000. I was the idiot who joined a .com in the summer of 2000, which was the wrong time for people who don't know their business history to join a
Okay.
.com. But anyway, I joined the number 7 job board in a world that needed two. It was a big lesson learned there. But anyway, but back then everything was just .com. Just put .com at the end of anything, and boom, you've created lots of value. So anyway, I'm a little skeptical of the AI buzz. Even in the prop tech world, we see people throwing in the word AI,
Mhm.
this, and that. But for the most part, it's less about AI and more about connectivity and interaction. So
Mhm.
I mentioned sort of technology history. Once upon a time, a PC or a computer, was a desktop computer, was just something that sat on your desk and everything happened there. And then eventually over time, they were linked to each other. And then they were linked to this thing called the internet. And so each step, as you add more connectivity, there's more value. And it's the same way with smart home devices and so on. It's one thing to have a smart lock, but a smart lock that's linked to the internet is a lot more valuable, because then you can for example, parse out who gets admitted. You can have specific codes for the plumber who's coming to fix the toilet, can get a different code, and you can have better handle on what's happening at all your properties
Right.
by connecting devices to each other and to the internet and to our
Right.
software, of course. So anyway, so more connectivity than AI, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's fair, right? I mean, so our platform's very data based, and I know the AI is there, but right now, to your point, we're more concerned about the data and making
Yeah.
sure that the data is right. I mean, because the AI is not going away. Like
No, no.
it's not.
This
And what
internet's,
we
I
use,
think the internet's going to stay too.
yeah,
That's
yeah, I
an
think the internet's
observation.
around for
I'm
a
coming off
while.
the fence to declare my allegiance to the future of the internet. Yeah.
Exactly. I wonder what the flag's going to look like. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, who
Yeah.
knows? But yeah, so it's definitely an interesting thing. I chuckle because everybody has this like love-hate relationship with AI, right? You're talking about AI buzz, and so that's the love, but then there's the fear that it's all going to be iRobot, and we're going to be taken over and herded like cattle by AI robots. I don't know. I think it's somewhere in between. I think, AI has to rely on the data we give it and the constraints we give it, I guess. I don't know. I
Right
don't know.
now, it's really, I mean, for the Chat GPT and the types of things that regular consumers are playing with, it is just an enhanced search engine for the most
Yeah.
part. People will say,
Sure.
but for example, in the travel industry, people have said AI is great for you say, give me a 3-day itinerary for a trip to Tampa. And it does that. Isn't that amazing? I'm like, yeah, so did Google 10 years ago. I mean, it's not that, or a YouTube search. You'll find a whole
Yeah.
bunch of people
Yeah.
eager to give you
Yeah.
a 3-day inventory, itinerary for Tampa. So it's I think the buzz is a little overstated. But then on the other hand, when people start to diminish the buzz, I will go more pro. I just go to the opposite, because
Yeah.
it's a narrative that swings back and forth. And I've spent a lot of my career around media companies, and so I know that narrative is everything, and people want to develop and then fit into narratives. And
Mhm.
in another, say, 6 months, we're going to be, why was AI overhyped? And then 6 months after that, no, AI is real, it's back again. So it's inevitable. Meanwhile, I think the more important question is, what do operators really need, and what makes their
Yeah.
life better?
Yeah.
And I mentioned as part of my elevator pitch, basically it's saving money is the biggest thing, and that money is energy and labor. Those are the two
Mhm.
things. If you can be more efficient with those two things, you have a better business, and not unimportantly, a better planet. So those are good things. And then you can make money a little bit, because in the residential space, some of our larger clients, they actually charge their renters a technology access fee. So they're actually making money on what they pay us for our software. So that's a
Yeah,
good
that's
thing.
cool.
And then
Yeah.
reduce risk. I mean, these days in the residential space, squatting is a big deal.
Hmm.
Rental fraud is a big deal.
Yep.
And having ultra secure self-guided tours really reduces that risk. Plus, having motion detectors and so on to know that, wait a second, unit 362 of my 1,000 houses is supposed to be unoccupied. Why are we getting motion detector readings? There's something going on. It's either a really big raccoon or it's someone squatting. Either way,
Hmm.
we need to get someone out there and take care of it. So,
Yeah.
and then of course, other risks, leak detectors are great, for example. They're
Right.
essentially free. And if you can detect a leak before it becomes a flood or a mold problem, saves lots of money.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway,
It's
and
usually the damn drip pans and the ACs, and they've been leaking
exactly,
for a
yeah,
hundred years, and then like your whole ceiling collapses.
exactly right. Yeah, really,
Yeah.
really bad things happen. And a
Yeah.
little leak detector that gives you an alarm
Hmm.
early on can save an untold amount of money. So
Yeah. And
with
it's some
that,
knucklehead tenant that turned the drain pan switch off because the AC would kick off because the condensate line was clogged. And so they thought they'll be a genius and fix it by turning the control switch off.
oh
Just
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely.
no, that's what it's for.
Whatever can go wrong will go wrong in a lot of these
I know.
places. That's why you need to have a handle on what's happening, and technology allows you to do that now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I totally agree on on that we're really getting really good at is this whole IoT device. But it really depends, I guess, what I was facing, because I was a multifamily owner for a long time, and I've had it's the connectivity issues, right? So you're dependent on, or are you not dependent on, are you using cellular data, or you have the,
Yeah,
or
we use
community have
actually
to have Wi-Fi?
yeah, so locally within the unit there are like 5 or 6 different technologies we use: Zigbee, Z-Wave, 802, Bluetooth, cellular, and then connectivity to the outside world, to the internet, is either Wi-Fi, plugged in, old-fashioned into the wall internet, or cellular. We have
Okay.
all three. So our
Yeah.
devices, the gateway devices, do all three.
Okay. All right. So if one goes down, you got the others as backup.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for sure. It's but it is like the biggest issue, especially if I mean, you're in homes, so it's not as quite as demanding, but if you're like going on to a multifamily complex, it's a big issue.
It
The
is.
connectivity in multifamily is not there, and the majority of the properties don't have
Community,
community-wide
yeah, community
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi, yeah.
Yeah.
It seems to be a trend.
Yeah.
Increasingly it's a utility or a service that is provided alongside of the rent.
Right.
But you're right, by far not everywhere.
Yeah, and it really kind of limits the IoT device prevalence in those properties, because they need connectivity. Yeah,
Right.
you can stick a device down, but if it's pinging in nowhere, like was it good
Yep.
to do anybody?
No,
Yeah.
absolutely true.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, but it's interesting how fast the adoption's happening, for sure. I mean, like no joke, if 4 years ago there was a majority of people didn't, I mean, they didn't have smart locks, and they didn't have, it was
Right.
like something for a luxury class A building, right?
Yes.
But and they actually didn't have smart locks, they have fobs. You remember those?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Your little
Yeah.
thing on a keychain. Yeah. Yeah.
On
Yeah.
the little keychains,
Yeah.
little
No.
fob.
And that's
Everybody
still,
would lose them. It's like just having a key. It's like, I don't want keys. I don't want a fob. I don't
yeah.
want anything that anybody can lose. They just need to show up with their finger.
Yeah, exactly. No, but you're right. It does take a long time. And actually, I have found that the multifamily world is pretty conservative. I think of all the various spaces, I
Mhm.
hear them more. And I live and work in Dallas, and there's just a lot of multifamily headquarters here, and they
Yeah.
tend to be very, very conservative when it comes to technology. Whereas single family, one of the reasons I'm so bullish on single family is single family has the problem that multifamily does not, which is the conquering space. So
Mhm.
houses, even if you have a contiguous community of, say, 500 houses, to go from
Mhm.
house one to house 500, it takes time.
Yeah.
Even if you're in a golf cart or a pickup truck or whatever, it's very expensive to go check to make sure that the air conditioner is at the right temperature. You really need technology to tell you what's happening.
Yeah.
Whereas multifamily, there's always a temptation. Look, I've got a handyman named Bob, and he can go to the
Mhm.
third floor and check on that stuff in theory if he's doing it.
Mhm.
But so they fall back on labor and 100-year-old management practices more so than the single family people. Also,
Oh, yeah.
multifamily tends to be, at least in my experience, a little bit more family owned, a little more conservative. My grandfather used metal keys. Damn it, they work fine. You hear that. Whereas the single family world tends to be much more corporate. People are answering to very large private equity funds, where people with fancy MBAs are asking questions like, how are you using technology to save energy and labor? And if they don't have answers, they don't work there very long.
Mhm.
So that's another thing why I like single family a lot better.
For sure. I mean, they were by just, by the design of their business model, had to centralize their maintenance operation. They had to adopt technology, because they especially dispersed portfolios. Can you imagine? Like
Oh
the
yeah.
just the amount. So it's interesting. I mean, I know a lot of people. So we were all kind of chasing the build to rent there for a while, because multifamily didn't make sense to develop, but build to rent did. Or what do I call it? Horizontal multifamily. It's just so silly, the names people come up with.
Yeah.
But yeah, and people were like, well, because it's a stickier tenant, they stay longer. They tend to average leases, 5 to 7 years versus 1 to 2 in a multifamily apartment. And so people were really kind of chasing that train, but what they weren't expecting was they were really going to have to change their operational model. I mean, it just did. Like, you're in a build to rent community,
Exactly.
it doesn't matter if you have 200, it's still kind of a long way. It's like, you're building them on acres.
No,
They're still
absolutely,
going to go
absolutely.
a
Yeah,
long
yeah,
way, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, to
yeah.
go
Time,
maintain
time and
something.
distance. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, for sure. You were telling before we kind of got in here, you're telling me that you came in 3 years ago,
Yep.
so when you came in, so the family office chose to buy the company and you
Exactly.
kind of
Called the
came in.
Mariah
So,
Group out of Midland, Texas. Yes.
yep. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so what was your challenges kind of coming in? I mean, it was an older company,
Yeah, it's been around for about
was it,
15 years, mostly in the vacation space. We had just expanded into residential by winning an RFP with Tricon Residential. The biggest challenge we had my first year, and arguably we still wrestle with it, is defining what we do.
mm,
Because I kept hearing internally, what do we do? Literally, people would say, oh, we do everything. And I said, well, you can't do everything. I'm like, no, we really do. And true, it is an impressive list of things that we do.
mm,
But if you do everything, it's very hard to define why someone should use you. So definition, that little elevator pitch, maybe medium-sized elevator pitch I gave at the beginning of this conversation, that took 6 months to put together because
oh, yeah.
literally we would say we do just about everything. We're a platform. We do everything like, oh, so we replaced the PMS. No, you still need a property management system because property management systems are really accounting systems typically. Even Yardi, RealPage, many of them have expanded through acquisition and development into other areas. But at their core, in their core DNA, they are accounting systems run by accountants.
Mm,
And that's what property management systems are. In the vacation world, we deal with about 50 different property management system companies, Guest and Track and Lightmaker and Streamline. Inhabit IQ has a few, ResMan and so on.
mhm,
But basically they're all accounting systems. That's why we're able to have APIs that write back to those. But
mhm.
very few people do what happens inside the four walls of the structure itself, as opposed to the
Yeah.
notional concept of the business. It seems to me that the prop tech world has sort of three real big buckets of activity. One is marketplace stuff. We don't play in that at all. And that's where RealPage and Yardi and so on really have biggest share, which is marketplace data. What are the rental
Yeah.
rates in a given area? What rents should I be charging?
Mhm,
What does a two-bedroom, two-bath go for in my part of town? Those
mhm,
types of things, marketplace data. At the other extreme is, like I said, the accounting systems. And in the middle is what's really happening at the structure itself. And that's what we
mhm,
call operations software.
mhm,
And we have an operations platform because what we compete against, and back to that original question of when I got on board defining what we do, we really compete against point solutions. So for example, in the vacation
mm,
world, there is a housekeeping software called Breezeway. And
yeah.
there are other bits of software that do just one thing, like they can do access gates or they do maintenance. There's a lot of different maintenance programs.
Mhm,
And what happens is people go to conferences. Property managers and owner operators go to conferences like IMN conferences and so on, and they go to all these panel discussions and they hear talk about the importance of platforms. And they nod along, yeah, platforms, that's the way to go. But then they buy point solutions because they're generally trying to solve for one problem at a time. And the problem is they wake up one day and they've got 5 or 6 different pieces of software that don't talk to one another. So you've got in the vacation world a housekeeper showing up when the family is still there because the reservation system is separate than the housekeeping system, and they didn't let the housekeepers know that the family's staying for an extra day. Things like that. Or a maintenance program that has a unit down for maintenance, but the self-guided tour program doesn't know that it's down for maintenance. And now you've got someone coming to prospectively rent a unit and find, ladders and paint drapes everywhere. It's not good.
right.
So anyway, so we really advocate and endorse the idea that a platform, kind of like another analogy I use, and some listeners who are on the younger end may not remember this, but before Microsoft Office, there was a Lotus 123 and a WordPerfect and a
Mhm,
Harvard Graphics, and there
mhm.
was distinct programs,
Different.
point solutions for each desktop need that a typical business person would have. Then Microsoft Office came along, what was that, 15, maybe even 20 years ago, and said, no, you just need Microsoft Office. And in there's a Word and Excel and a PowerPoint, and so much so that we take that for granted now. But it took a
Mhm,
while for that platform, sitting, of course, on top of Windows or iOS in the Apple world, to work. But it's really important to have interoperability, and that's what a platform provides as opposed to point solutions.
For sure. I think it's also heartening to know that, that company had been around for 12 years or 15
Mhm.
years when you got there, and they still
Yeah,
didn't know what they did. With the
yeah, yeah,
startup
yeah. Yeah.
founders, we
Well, part
we
of it is because
face
they
that
did.
all
I
the
mean,
time.
they legitimately do too much, and we have to
Yeah.
this day we have what's called an engineering-led culture, what I call an engineering-led culture, which is what really is in the DNA of this company, Be Home 24/7, is solving technical problems. So I've
Mm,
never seen the team so excited as when someone says, "Can we do this?" And they say, "I don't know, give us 2 days. Let's see if we can figure it out." And they love going back in the skunk works and coming back with a solution that would have taken other people months, if not years,
mm,
to get to.
yeah.
But with that comes complexity. It's kind of like another analogy I use is an iPhone. If you really open up an iPhone and see how complex it is on the inside, it'll melt your brain. On the other
Mm,
hand, we all know, I mean, the basics of phone, text, email, internet access, and apps is broad enough that we all think we know what an iPhone can do, but it's like kind of like the human brain. We're using 10% of what it can do.
right.
But anyway, it's an ongoing solution, and almost everybody, this product market fit is what business academics call it, and
Right.
it's a real challenge to figure that out. And what business are you really in? And even long established companies, like a Disney or whatever, they will struggle at some point in their evolution to say, well, what are we really about? What is our purpose?
Yeah.
And that's the role of senior leadership, is to relentlessly determine and articulate what that purpose is. And when it's wrong, you get fired. And when it's right, you boom. And that's how it works.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because the market changes, right? So you have a
Exactly.
product and that's a problem, is the never ending cycle of markets that change, and customer preferences and all those other great things.
And the
Yeah.
question is, should you change or should you not? Because sometimes
Yeah.
the right answer is to stay the course. Sometimes it is to change with the market. And there's not right or wrong until you look back a few years later.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's constantly what you face with. So, when so a lot of startup founders, we're not have that luxury where we're PE backed yet. I mean, there's some of us that are getting there. They're just starting to raise capital and all those great things.
Yeah.
So you're on that other end of it where you've got the capital side.
Yeah, we have avoided private equity. Man, I flirt with all of them, and
Yeah.
I get calls 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
No kidding. Um, and um, and private equity may someday be the right answer, but
Yep.
for a couple of reasons we've avoided it. One, I've definitely avoided venture capital. I have an old saying that venture capitalists have the parenting skills of sea turtles, and I
Mhm.
would rather avoid them if possible. The value add is much less than they think it is, and there's a plenty of money out there, and you don't have to play the game of the VC game. Because I
Right.
also learned, that's one thing I did learn in my first CEO gig 24 years ago at jobs.com, is that venture capitalists, they don't have the secret sauce. They're reading the same articles that you are, and
Mhm.
they spout the same buzzwords, but they're basically lemmings, as a general rule. Of course, there are exceptions, but private equity, on the other hand, is the good news is there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
And out there, they have their own restrictions, but of course they're paid to put money to work. But do you
Right.
really need the money is the question. So in our case, we have avoided private equity because the lead times in our selling process are really long. I mean, like 18 to 24 months long.
Oh,
Because it's a
okay.
platform.
Right.
This is not some CTO thinking, "Hey, let's give it a shot." It is rather, wow, do we want to fundamentally build our business around this platform of Be Home
Mhm.
24/7? And when the answer is yes, with companies like Home Partners of America and Tricon and Home Source and others, they have to alter how they do things. The good news
Mm,
is they picked something that's worked and it's worked for others.
right.
The difficult thing for them to get their heads around it is it's too easy to procrastinate in the prop tech world, because people have lived without much technology for so long, they can live a little bit longer is
Mm,
the answer. And as we said
Yeah.
earlier, that's why I hear that line, well, metal keys work fine. I'm like, yeah, they do work fine. If you don't mind rekeying costs and lost keys and all this and not having the advantages that smart locks bring, okay, life does go on. It's not like you're going to die because you don't have smart locks. But so anyway, it's just people can procrastinate that decision
Yeah.
too long.
Yeah. Don't you feel though there's a changing of the guard happening in
It
the
feels yeah, emotionally it feels
yeah.
like it is, but it's still, from 40/60s to 60/40. I mean, there's still a lot of folks. I
Yeah.
mean, we both live in Texas, and multifamily people, for example, I've heard, with leasing rates that are so high that
Hmm.
they figure, next time I'm not even going to paint at the turn. I'm just going to throw out one tenant and bring in another. They've gotten cocky in many ways, and
Mm.
so they just the killer app that we really need is to break the procrastination cycle. If we could time travel to the future and go look at all the benefits you had in the last year, they would
Right.
sign up and get going right away. The problem is it's too easy to say, I need it, I love it, I love what you're doing, I hear the references, I've talked to all the good things. Next year, let's do this. And you're like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. No. Because it's the pain, the value versus pain kind of the, cost benefit analysis. And it for everybody because they operate so inefficiently. It
Yes.
just, I mean,
Yeah,
that's kind of our platform too. We're trying to make, commercial real estate super efficient and I'm going to have to change the way they operate.
they've
I mean,
learned to live with the
yeah,
pain is another way
yeah,
of
it's
phrasing it.
hard,
Yeah,
but it's so temporary and it's really just inertia. Like once you get going, you're going to be fine.
absolutely.
It's just, yeah, but it's just that initial like, okay, let's get over the hump, get over the learning curve, and then realize. But yeah, no. I get it. I have the same pain.
No question. No, I think we all do. I was actually last week I was talking to a venture capitalist, having just badmouthed them before, but good fellow, bright fellow, and he said not every problem is a huge problem, which I thought was an interesting line, and it is true. In the prop tech world, there are so many companies chasing a problem, and they can articulate how it's a large
Mhm.
addressable market and so on, and maybe it is, but is it really a top priority?
Yeah,
Maybe not.
yeah.
And then there's a little bit of an anthropological theory that I'm working on. It's not fully developed yet, but that the real estate industry, broadly defined, very, very broadly defined, is largely run by deal-oriented people who I describe as Trumpian. It's not a political statement. It's an art of
Hmm.
the deal,
Hmm.
jock table, buy, sell type mentality. And operations are considered much more that's the nerd table. That's the science fair people. There's not the cool guys that buy and sell
Yeah,
stuff. And
yeah.
so as a result, they don't have the clout to command resources inside of organizations. The smart ones figure it out and they realize that they're leaving money on the table if they don't focus on operations. But it's kind of like I was a Marine 1,000 years ago, and in the military, if you're not an Air Force, if you're in the Air Force and you're not a fighter pilot, you can sit at the table, but you shouldn't speak first. Their cultures do demand anthropologically. There are
Hmm.
cultural differences that do matter.
Yeah, no, but I think, and part of that is because real estate is very forgiving, right? You can be a complete knucklehead and go buy real estate and just catch the right cycle and you look like a
Oh
genius,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so,
I,
but
my
now, yeah, I
yeah,
don't think I think they're realizing now they actually have to know how to operate it, right? I think this
exactly.
whole shift is changing and therefore they're like, oh,
Well,
we've got to control
I'm
costs.
relatively new to real estate, but someone taught me early on. I love this phrase, that this saying that God created real estate so C students could get rich too. I
Very
like
true.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say real estate's forgiving,
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
right cycle, it's
Yours is
forgiving.
a kinder statement.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
a kinder statement. No, but it definitely is. And so you have but right now and if my crystal ball broke a long time ago, but I would say that we're in this quagmire in real estate for a couple of years. Nobody wants to hear that, but
No.
that's where we're there. Like what 2000 I started investing back in '08. I mean, that
Yeah.
lasted really, we didn't get out of that till 2012.
Sure.
Everybody doesn't remember that. They think it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
you're in and out by '09. Like,
Well,
no.
and back to my point about procrastination, is that sometimes you're rewarded by inactivity. That's why procrastination is rewarded.
Yeah, that's true. You just hang out long enough, then it changes on you. But I don't know. It's it's a very interesting thing. I think yeah, I mean, because I was facing the same thing when we initially started selling or looking at getting beta testers for our software and pitching our kind of our idea back in 21. Everybody's like, what do we need that for? You know? And I'm like, trust me, you will. I've been around a long time. I can see the
Exactly.
writing on the wall. It's not, he's Jerome Powell is telling you what he's going to do.
Yeah.
And then he does and he does it. It's an
If you,
amazing thing. So every time he says he's going to raise it, he raises it.
that's
What
right.
do you think happens?
If you live long enough, you'll see everything.
Yeah, that's true. That is very, very true. So it's interesting. So, but I think there is a changing of the guard, which is good for you and I, because both our platforms are built on we're trying to drive efficiency and automations. But I think there's also another macro environmental thing happening is that there's a property management kind of crisis in the United States. There's a lack of really good property managers. And because of that, all the ones that are in the game right now are like overwhelmed with crazy amounts of work that they have to do because their systems are so antiquated and because there's a lack of knowledge. As soon as a maintenance tech leaves an organization, they don't know where anything is anywhere, right? And because it's all kind of up in here and they don't have the systems to maintain a lot of that
Yeah,
stuff.
especially if you're right, as the baby boomers retire and so on.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of interesting that those two headwinds are kind of facing real estate at the moment. I mean, the average age of a tradesperson is what, 50 now? I mean, it was, 10 years ago, it was 43 and 44. People are starting to get scared. Now it's like 50.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the only savings grace is maybe those people have to work a little bit longer into their 50s, into their 70s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, but still, it's like it's at the impending. So we have to really kind of take a look at ourselves, and I do think that technology is going to kind of save the day, right? We're going to have to build out automations and efficiencies and databases and things so we can get stuff done without the original. I don't think anybody can stay in the way they operate today and be here in 5-10 years. I don't think that
No.
happens, right? Or even at any sort of scale, right? They might own one property. Anybody can own one property.
Sure.
That's easy.
But scale. And scale has always been scale is the key word, and technology allows scale. It's that simple. Good technology.
For sure. So what else do you see as like, what are you thinking as your crystal ball, or like what you're seeing as the industry and how it changes, it adopts to technology?
Well, I think there's that issue of scale is not just a technological issue, it's a financial issue as well. So like in the vacation world, there've been a lot of attempts, and property management in the residential world as well, a lot of attempts to talk about technology and talk about how it will allow scalability. But in practice, just talking about it's not the same thing as doing it. And so I think we've seen a lot of in vacation. I won't name names as to be offensive, but there have been roll-ups in the vacation world where people have talked a good game about technology, but not really done it. And in the vacation rental world, it's questionable how important scale is. I mean, scale, if you run 2 units as opposed to running to 100 units, there's definitely benefits to going to 100 rather than 2. However, when you get to 10,000 or 5,000 units, and you've lost the local specificity, because a local property manager has local knowledge that can really help.
Right.
And you want to expand that through hundreds, if not low digit thousands. But it's an open question whether when you get to 20,000 units or whatever you know about running properties in Key West, how that applies to Cape Cod or Juneau, Alaska is questionable. And so, but people have also found you need really good technology. You can't just talk about technology. And unfortunately, there's been a little bit of a cynical approach in recent years. And frankly, private equity and Wall Street to some degree have fallen for that. And same thing in the residential world. Local knowledge is sometimes the best. Like, for example, to my knowledge, at the really high end, like at a Crested Butte or Aspen or whatever, there's not a whole lot of huge corporate property managers because people value and are willing to pay for some guy who just supports 50 huge houses.
Hmm.
And he doesn't get the benefits of scale, but they don't care about the benefits of scale. These are people that hire private chefs. They by definition, there's no scale there. And so, but anyway, but I think this whole issue around scale and prudent use of technology is really interesting. Another trend, not really related to that, but is mixed use. The idea of a property, let's say it's a 100-unit multifamily, but maybe 10 of the units are short-term rental, whether
Right.
for corporate purposes or vacation purposes. And maybe there's a hotel. Maybe there's a hotel,
Hmm.
a vacation rental, and long-term rental all in the same space. You need the right technology to do that.
Right.
And this is not a place to have an advertisement, so I won't talk too much about us, but yeah, so we do that, and we're finding more and more interest around that. Again, when people are too siloed in their choice of technology or too much point solution, they end up buying something that only works for one purpose, and it doesn't work in the mixed use. But I think that's very interesting as
Yep.
well. Yeah, and I think finally the final thing I'll mention is I do think you've talked about a generational shift. I think that's very interesting. I think as younger people come in, and some technologically hip older people as well, as renters or vacationers, they expect a certain level of technology, and when they don't find it, I think I coined the term, if a little egotistical pat on the back, digital curb appeal. I think there's
Mhm.
something called digital curb appeal, that if you go see a property and it doesn't have some up-to-date features, you're going to think, well, what else is wrong with this property? It's kind of like if you think
Yep.
about, I think about hotel Wi-Fi. I remember 15 years ago, give or take, that you'd say, oh, cool, they have Wi-Fi here. And even if it was expensive or it was spotty, you were just grateful that they had it. A few years later, you were thinking, wait, it's not free and it's not fast. This place is terrible. Why am I at this hotel? This is a terrible hotel. And today it would be an absolute, this is an awful hotel. You'd get right on TripAdvisor and say, this is a hotel of horrors. Do not come here. They charge you for slow Wi-Fi. Or they don't have Wi-Fi. It's unthinkable that they wouldn't have
Yeah.
Wi-Fi today. And so it's the same way with other technology, whether it's, locks and thermostats and, the ability to, if you're paying the energy bill, I forgot to turn the thermostat down when I left for the weekend. I'm going to do it from my phone right now. If you can't do that, you think, oh man, well, that's a bad thing. I don't want to pay for air conditioning in Phoenix in Arizona in August for 3 days when I don't have to. And if I had it on my phone, I could easily fix that.
Yes.
That's it. Just
Sure.
it becomes
No.
expected.
Yeah. No, no, I get it. I get and how quickly they change. Like it
Yes.
quickly, it just like overnight almost like, oh, I can do that now. Oh, great. And then just it
Exactly.
becomes the norm.
Absolutely the norm. Yeah,
For
yeah.
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get it. That is so interesting. So how do you embrace the whole, so the vacation rental folks typically are, it's right kind of a hybrid thing, right? So you got into single family
Yep.
residential a little bit
Yep.
and thinking that it's long-term vacation, which is kind of is. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's catering to a tenant, however
Yep.
you want to cater to that tenant. And people have different expectations if it's a short weekend rental versus a long-term thing. But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you're meeting expectations. But I think the whole process around how you adapted that sounds like it would be a really interesting story, like going
Yeah.
from vacation rental to single family rental.
Yeah, it's what's similar and what's different,
Yeah.
is the thing. In fact, one of the buzz phrases we use, because all of life is a bumper sticker, is bringing a hospitality mindset to the residential experience. Doesn't that sound
Okay, there you
fancy?
go. Look
It
at
sounds very,
that.
very fancy, but it does. It sounds like a campaign slogan, but it really is true. It is thinking of, and I think more advanced property managers or owner operators in the residential space are thinking that way. I mean, generally they think in terms of amenities and so on.
Mhm.
And if you tour a deluxe apartment complex in whatever part of the world, they'll very often talk about their pool and their tennis court and this and that because those are amenities that they're proud of. But there are other types of things as well. So thinking of your resident not as just someone who's stuck living there, but rather a guest that you want to delight and a guest that you want to enable to get back to their lives, whether it be a
Mhm.
vacation or a vibrant day-to-day life. either way, that mindset is very important, and I think that's where the industry is headed, to deliver more of that, delight the resident or guest in a way that might have been unthinkable before. And even the word tenant, we used to say, tenant.
Yep.
People
I
still
know.
say tenant, but
Hmm.
tenant to me sounds like the Lower East Side of Manhattan in 1925 with, a whole bunch of
Yeah.
post Ellis Island folks living in a small walk-up. That's
Hmm.
not the image we want. And that's why
It's true.
vocabulary with a little bit more dignity to it, like
Mhm.
resident or guest and so on. You see that more and more by people who are trying to get their mind around this delivering a higher level.
Yeah, no, yeah, changing your vocabulary does change your mindset for sure. Right. And that's why some people really harp on it. Yeah, I went from tenant to resident. What was it before tenant? I don't even remember what it was before.
I-
Renter? Was it
yeah,
renter?
renter or
Was
that
it
guy in
renter?
my unit.
That guy in my unit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I know. It's too funny. But no, that is very true. I mean, as you kind of change that. So talk about being a founder and a CEO of a company, and what are you thinking long term for your group?
Yeah. So actually, I'm not a founder. So I work with our founder is our CTO. So
Oh, okay. The
Joseph
CTO.
Morris, who is an awesome guy and a real visionary in developing this technology. But I am the CEO, and so it's a little bit like being a step parent. You have to be. I would imagine. What do I know? I've been married for 37 years to the same person, but from friends that are step parents or who are married to step parents, I understand it can be difficult, and part of that is understanding who does what and what's important and what's not important and so on. But for us, we continue. We have, I think, a few more years to grow out. We have a number of large. We have two of the top eight SFR companies work with us, Tricon and Home Partners of America. We are in fourth quarter discussions with two or three others. The problem is, again, getting to the end of the game, to use that analogy,
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
not always easy and can't be counted on. And then there's a whole in the SFR world, there's a whole huge group of a couple hundred of mid-sized SFRs that have 5,000 units or 3,000 units and so on. And we're talking to a bunch of those. Getting them across the line will be a big opportunity for us. And then on
Hmm.
the vacation side, likewise, I use a football analogy, which is kind of funny because I never played football, but it's the ground game, meaning running with the
Hmm.
ball for 3 or 4 yards at a time. That's vacation rental because it's 100 units here, 400 units there. The SFR is the passing game. You may not connect, but when you do connect, it's 25,000 units or
Ah,
30,000
yeah.
units and so
Yeah.
on. And
Yeah.
so I personally, we have a very healthy debate internally between well, we have balance between, we'll start the year as 1/3 residential, 2/3 vacation. Actually, by the end of the year, that will flip. We'll have 2/3 residential and 1/3 vacation.
Hmm.
But I think it'll probably balance out at 50-50 eventually on
Hmm.
both sides. And again, back to that whole tendency or that priority to make sure that we focus. It is tempting to chase after senior housing and student housing, and there's so many other areas that we could
Hmm.
do. And if the right client comes along, we can do that. But we have limited resources, so from a marketing perspective, we have to focus on what we do as well as what we don't do. Uh,
Hmm.
and so that's why we're staying away from commercial. We're staying away from. I mean, when I got here, we were even talking about self-storage and all sorts of other units that parts of our technology would work really well for, but we
Yeah.
can't do everything. Like you
Yeah.
have to focus on doing a few things well.
Yeah. No, no, I get it. And it is the what a lot of technology companies face, right? That's a constant challenge. I mean, I get it. I get hit up all the time. Amy, this would work great over here. And this
Yeah.
would work great there. I'm like, yeah, yeah, I know it
Yeah.
would. But that's a whole other customer set. That's a whole other the effort to go chase a different type of customer. That's
It's
insane.
very, very difficult. Now, every now and then, you can know with hindsight. I always joke with my business friends that I distinctly remember back in the late '90s when Amazon announced they were going to get beyond just books and music and do other things, and I thought they're crazy, they're idiots. You know, they can crush Borders and Barnes and Noble, but no, they're going to
No,
bet it
no.
all, and they're probably
Mhm.
going to lose. And I was 100% wrong, obviously,
Yeah.
with the trillions of dollars they have created. However, no one talks about the other 99 examples where people swung for the fences and struck out. Uh,
Oh, for sure.
yeah, and so yeah, that's why I think self-knowledge is very important, both personal self-knowledge, but also knowing your investors, knowing your company. I would much rather consistently, I'm switching over to baseball analogies now, but hit doubles and triples rather than home runs and strikeouts.
Yeah.
And so it is every day coming to work and delivering a good product. The word of mouth is the best marketing still, and
Hmm.
we'll just continue to grow. And eventually, probably in a few years' time, there'll be consolidation in our space. There's a little bit of consolidation happening now, but
Hmm.
I think someone will come along and realize that a platform like ours is a great bet to then add other things on top of. In fact, we get
Right.
hit all the time by people wanting to add, renters insurance and
Yep.
dog walking services or whatever else into our
Hmm.
platform. And someone could do that. For now, we stiff arm that because we want to stay focused. But
Yep.
eventually, a larger company, also with a larger installed base where that stuff can really work, uh, may make sense.
Yeah, and I mean the chasing the integration game. We're a data aggregator, so like that whole that headache is. I mean, it is necessary. I mean, that's the solution and problem we're solving, but it is a huge pain in the rear.
Oh yeah.
And the in a whole integration thing, and Proptech is going to face it because the solutions have not come out comprehensive, and so people are solving different point things, and so now we have to kind of integrate, and we have to
Yes.
figure out how do we solve this integration challenge when most of the everything that was developed prior to say us coming on board wasn't integratable, like it wasn't
Yes.
made to be integratable, right? And
Right.
so now you have all these crazy things you're trying to solve. And so it's
Yep.
interesting, yeah, that how that's coming about for sure. I mean, the
Yeah, I
whole
agree.
integration, yeah, the integration thing will be a huge thing. Like everything else, like everything.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah. But this has been such a cool conversation. I'm so
well, I
glad
enjoyed it.
you came
Thank you.
on. Yeah, it was great. Thank you for that. And I'm sure everybody enjoyed listening and learning more about your company and all of our lovely conversation. This is kind of how
Great.
these go. They're great for sure. Well, thank you.
Excellent. I look forward to the next time.
All right. Thanks. You know what? My problem is this is so funny. I don't have my glasses, and so there they are.